Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
I'm an alcoholic. My name is Bud. And my friends do call me Ungrateful. As a matter of fact, there she is. Must be one of my friends. She knows my real name. Anyway, my Friday night home group, which is where I should be tonight, is everybody gets a nickname, and mine turned out to be Ungrateful. We do have another Bud in the group. His name is Horseshit, and but if you ask him to come and speak, he uses his on the road speaking name. He's Horseshoe Bud on the road, but in our group he's Horseshit. We have Tender Tom and Rotten Ron used to be in our group years ago, but I understand you folks have inherited that one. So we have Suicide Tom, Tender Tom, you know, everybody's sick anyway. It's a good group, and it's where I got sober. I was told Pat and or Fritz asked me to be here, so I always like to give credit to the whom you should know you should go after. Your secretary didn't call me and ask me. I think it was either Pat and or Fritz, and so those are the people responsible for me being here. And she said that this thing is usually over about 9 o'clock, and so I'll try to be over about 9 o'clock, but she said she's already collected the money, so it doesn't matter. You know, I know what I've got to do for the next 45 or 50 minutes. What I don't know is what you have to do. So if you finish ahead of me, why, go ahead. It'll be okay. This is Alcoholics Anonymous, and there are no dues or fees or rules or regulations, and when they do have them, we violate them anyway. I asked if this was the cry room over here, or the family for the mourners of the family. You know, it's always something new in Alcoholics Anonymous. I gotta see that my group are the folks that get to leave quietly, I guess, maybe. Do you have to pay extra for those seats in there? Anyway, you know, it's about a half mile beyond any links up here. I come from Santa Ana, and I left an hour ago, so I thought I had plenty of time, but man, oh man, I didn't. So I missed the newcomers. Could I see the hands again of the newcomers? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We lost one, I guess. There are 5. Kevin told me that there were 6, and so anyway, maybe he heard me before, you know. I'd like to welcome the newcomers to Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been alcoholic now for 21 years, 9 months, and 1 day today. And the immediate 20 years that preceded that, I was a social drinker. I always drank like a gentleman, and nothing bad ever happened to me. Yeah, Alcoholics Anonymous didn't believe it the night I got there either. You know, the sad part was that I believed it. Anyway, it's been my experience since I became alcoholic 21 years, 9 months, and 1 day ago, that for every newcomer that has the guts to do what those 5 guys did, that there are usually an equal number who do not. And so I would especially like to welcome the 5 people that didn't raise your hands here tonight, and tell you that you're especially welcome in Alcoholics Anonymous. You're doing this thing right. That's the way I did it, and you got the right attitude. You probably haven't met anybody you liked or liked anybody you met, and you're pissed off at the speaker and you haven't even heard his story yet, and you got the right attitude, and you're home, and you're going to be okay. Now, those 5 that raised their hands, I don't know about those. I don't know about people like that. But if you didn't raise your hand, welcome. You're my kind of guy. And You're going to be okay. I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was brought here by my attorney, who's alcoholic, and he didn't tell me what he was about to do to me. Now, for the 5 new guys and my 5, did they explain anything yet? They usually they don't explain anything in Alcoholics Anonymous, and they weren't doing it 21 years ago either. And so for the new people, I always like to tell them a little bit, because they never explain anything. And for all those new guys out there, you got to know up front that alcoholism is a contagious disease, and it's caught in rooms like this from people like these. And if you don't want alcoholism, you have to stay out of these rooms, because alkies are very strange people. They love to infect other people with their disease. Now, the reason for that is this. Once they infect you, they get rid of a little bit of it. They never ever get rid of all of it, but they get rid of enough of it that they feel better, see? And that's why they say in Alcoholics Anonymous, keep coming back. Because once you get their damn disease, you're stuck with it forever. And then you have to keep coming back and hope some dummy will come up to you and say, hey, would you be my sponsor? And then always say, hell yes, and then infect him or her. And then you'll get to feeling better. And I didn't get to feeling better in Alcoholics Anonymous till I started trying to infect other people. And I do it at the drop of a hat. Man, I've tried to infect people that don't even drink. It doesn't work, but I feel better. And so anyway, as I said, you're going to find out after you're around here for a while that you're diseased, the new guys and gals, and that ought to thrill the hell out of you, you know. And they're going to tell you got a disease of a twofold nature, allergy of the body coupled with an obsession of the mind. In my case, it turned out to be twofold, allergy of the body coupled with an absence of the mind. But that kind of happens to social drinkers of my type. And so anyway, I usually forget to tell the new people that it turns out that it's the lucky ones that catch the disease that do okay in this program. And so I hope all of you get infected here tonight. As I said, I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous. This lawyer brought me in. My first meeting was Laguna Beach, Chuck C's old home group on Wednesday night down there at the Woman's Club. And thank God we didn't have to walk upstairs like you folks do. Anyway, or crawl up or fall down. Anyway, took me to Wednesday night, and they opened the damn thing by praying over us, and I wasn't too impressed with that, but I figured Wednesday night prayer meeting, here we go again. And so after they read, you know, they had prayed over us, and then they read 10 of this and 12 of these and 3 of those, and obviously had this Catholic type ritual they had to get through. And then after they got through with all that, then they brought out this birthday cake, and they sang happy birthday to this old toothless wonder. And it had 13 candles on it. They said he was 13. He was 85 if he was a day. But they said he was 13. So anyway, he finally got the candles all blown out, and then he said a couple of words, or, you know, gummed something, and then they helped him down off the stage, and then they got him down off stage, and then they called on this guy to talk. Now, the guy they called on to talk was a Catholic priest, and he was in uniform, had on the white collar and the whole bit. So I figured right away the Catholics were out to get me again. You know, you can't even hide from them in AA. And I figured what happens here in AA is they just have these various religious leaders come in and talk to you and tell you how to kind of shut it down at 6 or 8, and, you know, and square your life around a little bit. But it turns out this old guy's a drunk, and his name was Father Barney. He died here 2 or 3 years ago. But Father Barney was a gruff old rascal, and the only thing I heard Father Barney say that night was, I never had any damn pink clouds. And that's just the way Father Barney talked. And I think he must have marked me, because I've not had any damn pink clouds either. But I've also not had a drink or mind-changing chemical since my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't plan it that way either. So anyway, the reason I didn't hear anything is, you know, I found out that's the only thing I heard that night. And I found out they taped that meeting a few months later, and I thought, we better buy that tape and see what went on. So I bought that tape and listened to it. And sure enough, about 3 times in that talk, the man said, I never had any damn pink clouds. Now, the reason I hadn't heard anything that night is because the text of Father Barney's sermon was sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand Him. Now, I don't know about you, but at my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I wasn't ready for that. And I didn't hear it either. And so anyway, they finally got him shut up, and then they passed the basket, and I recognized that right away. You know, I wondered how much he got for that lousy talk. But I got even with them. I didn't put in, you know. And so anyway, they got the money all collected, and then they jumped up to dismiss us, and they prayed over us again. Now, when they started the meeting, they asked for newcomers and old-timers and out-of-towners and Al-Anoners and Alzheimer's. They asked for people I'd never even heard of. So when they jumped up to pray over us, they grabbed your hand on either side, you know. Well, this gal sitting on my left, I noticed she had not stood up for anything either, you know, so I figured she's like I am, social drinker, checking this thing out. And so anyway, they prayed over us, and at the end of the prayer, she gave it a little squeeze, you know. And I figured, well, here we go again. But the guy on the right gave it a little squeeze, too. And I figured Laguna Beach, what the hell, you know. So I got out of there as quick as I could, and I came back the next week, and I couldn't believe it, because the next week there was another Catholic priest, and it was in uniform, had on the white collar and the whole bit. And I thought, man, once you've been Catholic, they come after you. And only this was a young guy from Los Angeles, name's Terry. And Terry still talks in Alcoholics Anonymous, but he quit wearing that uniform, and he wears regular street alky clothes like the rest of us now. But anyway, old Terry got up there in front of that group of 200 people, and he told things I don't think I would have told in a stag. And I thought he was the worst thing I'd ever heard in my life, and I just loved the guy. So I came back the third week, and I thought, well, I'm getting the hang of this thing. This week there'll be Sister Mary Catherine, and she'll be in her habit, you know, and tell about drinking a cooking sherry or sleeping with a priest or some damn thing. And sure enough, there was a gal talk that third week, but she was no nun. That little lady had legally marched down the aisle 8 times, and I understood part of that. And they told me to keep coming back, and more would be revealed to me, and that's what Alcoholics Anonymous has been for me, a series of revelations all about Bud, the real Bud, the guy that I didn't know. And so I kept coming back, and the damn revelations started coming. I went to 17 meetings before I'd had enough of their revelations that I could stand up and say, my name's Bud, and I mean, you know what. And so anyway, in those early meetings, as the revelations started coming, you know, they said how this thing works in Alcoholics Anonymous is honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Well, I'm 100% in all 3 of those areas. Knew I'd have no problem. And so anyway, in one of those early, you know, guys get up here and he's tell these god-awful stories. You know, guys lost wives and homes and families and kids and wristwatches and cars and jobs. And my favorite thing in those early days was, you know, Bud, that never happened to you. And so this one particular night, this poor devil had lost it all, and he had been sober a number of years, and he was back, and he had a wristwatch, and he had a car, but the wife and the kids, none of that had come back, and he was doing well. And I was going home, and I said, you know, Bud, that never happened to you. And I'm alone in that car. And some little voice said, well, what about your second wife? Now, the truth of the matter is that wife that I was driving home to and so proud of, and my kids, it was my third wife. And so my 100% honesty started slipping away, and it finally got down to 0, which is what it really was. And also, as I said, you know, guys in Alcoholics Anonymous have been to jail and the penitentiary. Well, of course, that had never happened to me. But that morning that I was sitting down there in the Orange County Jail, it was it's kind of a bad set of circumstances. You know, it could happen to anybody. I was sober 2 days when they came over to my office and arrested me and hauled me down there and threw me in the old jail on Sycamore. I haven't made the new jail yet. We've got a new jail, but they threw me in that old jail on Sycamore, and I was sober 2 days when they came over and arrested me, and I was not there on common drunk. I was there on a felony. It seems that the state of California frowns on trying to kill other people. Now, that's not the way I remember the story. You know, Obviously, I was a blackout drinker, but if that crazy second wife hadn't made up all those lies and told all that crap, I wouldn't have been there. Turns out that district attorney had some colored pictures to back up that woman's lies, and so the reason I like to remember that story is because when I was sober about 6 weeks, I had a routine with my older brother. On the odd year, I'd go back to Colorado on vacation time, and on the even year, he would come out. He would come out here, and I don't know about you, but vacation time is drinking time. If you got 2 weeks, you got 2 weeks to drink. If you got 1 week, you got a week to drink. So anyway, it was my week to go drink with my older brother in Colorado, and I was sober 6 weeks. And so I got back there, and I told him, I said, you know, Bill, I said, I'm an alcoholic, and I said, I got to go to these AA meetings. Now, that man did not look me in the eye and say, oh, Bud, you're not alcoholic. They didn't even have a meeting in his hometown that night, but about 60 miles away, they had a little meeting, and he put me in that car, and we went there faster than you want to go. And so anyway, we got there, and 5 guys showed up for the meeting, my brother and I and 3 other guys. And just a few minutes before the meeting started, the guy sitting on my left, he leaned over to me and he said, Bud, he said, tomorrow I will have been out of the penitentiary 30 days. And the guy was 63 years old, and he had spent the last 25 years of his life in the Colorado State Penitentiary at Canyon City because his then second wife had not lived to have the colored pictures made. And I don't ever want to forget that. And so anyway, that's kind of how it got started for me. As I said, I went to those speaker meetings for 30 days. On my 30th day, I was still going to speaker meetings. Speaker meetings are, you know, great places to hide out. You know, they have all the half-measure rows and all that. And anybody go to one of these things, you sort of deserve what you get, or vice versa. And so anyway, Alcoholics Anonymous is one drunk talking to another, and these roundtable discussion and podium participation and step study and book study and 12 and 12 and stags. That's Alcoholics Anonymous. And so anyway, I was still going to speaker meetings on my 30th day, and they came to the newcomer part, and I stood up and I said, I'm happy to announce this is my 30th day, and I can stop this damn bobbing up and down. And I sat down. And the gal that was leading that meeting that night and the gal that was talking, they got together at the coffee break, and they came back from the coffee break, and like you guys did here tonight, and said, could we have that 30-day miracle up here? He needs help. Now, they didn't give chips back in those days. I'm still a little upset about that. But I thought after 30 days in AA, you finally get recognized. So anyway, I walked up there, and the gal said, you got to read the 12 traditions, because they did, like you guys do, sort of 12 traditions, sort of calm the crowd, I guess. And I said, well, I've never done that. And she looked me right in the eye and she said, you never say no in Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I didn't know what they do, take their damn 30 days away or what, make me start over. So anyway, I read the traditions and got through. The gal said it wasn't too bad. Said, you got to keep doing it, you get them right. Said, do you have a sponsor? Well, I figured that damn lawyer that infected me was my sponsor. I said, you know, I didn't fall off the turnip truck. Sure, I got a sponsor. She said, that's good. You now have 2 self-appointed spiritual advisors. And this gal talked a lot all over Southern California, named Sue. And every time she'd go somewhere to talk, she'd call me, and I'd have to go along and read the traditions. Now, I thought that's the way this thing works in AA. If you get asked to go talk somewhere in AA, you bring your tradition reader with you. And so I still do that to this day. And he's hiding out. I couldn't reach him here. I called this afternoon a couple of times, so I don't know where he's hiding. He'll probably get drunk. Anyway, he doesn't know any better either. So anyway, I was reading the tradition for about 3 months, and I was getting pretty good. We ended up over in West Covina in the basement of one of those dark churches one night, and I was dumbfounded, man. I was sober 3 months in Alcoholics Anonymous. This dummy that was leading the meeting was sober 3 years in Alcoholics Anonymous. She did not have a handle on this thing yet. She had somebody from her own group read the tradition. Can you believe that? So I was telling Sue about this on the way home, and she said, well, that's your basic resentment, dummy. And Sue is now sober 29 years in AA, and she still calls me dummy. So anyway, it works good. It's popular in Alcoholics Anonymous to talk about your bottom, and I was born on the 18th of December, 1929, in the Panhandle of Texas, and that's where I hit bottom. And 1929 was not your better year, and I see a few gray heads out there that can verify that along with me. And Panhandle of Texas is not God's gift to a lot of people, and there are even Texans that badmouth the Panhandle, and they don't consider that a real part of Texas, I guess. Anyway, the 18th of December comes 1 week before the birthday, and you know, a guy said to me one night, he said, "Bud, do you know what really burns my ass?" And I said, "No, what?" And he said, "A grass fire about that high." And the reason I like that story is that's kind of the story of my life, man. I'd think, well, I'll outgrow this one, and somebody would come by and set a little bit higher grass fire. And I was not aware how much that birthday was a grass fire till I ended up at the Friday Night Men's Stag in Anaheim. You know, I'm from a large family. I'm one of 11 children. There are 9 of us still alive. I'm the only alkie in the bunch. You know, a few drunks scattered around the group, but I'm the only alkie. And if you come from a large family like that, your birthday doesn't often get remembered anyway. But if it comes 1 week before the birthday, it gets forgotten a lot. And I was not aware how much that was a problem to me until I ended up that Friday Night Men's Stag, loving, kind, tender bunch of guys. And they got to, I'd been there about 6 months, and they got talking this one night about these rotten people that we get associated with, these well-meaning mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and husbands and wives and, you know, the rotten enablers that kill us. And so, God, I recognized that. So I started telling them about this bad deal. Poor little Bud, born on the wrong side of the tracks. Nobody ever loved me, you know, and they didn't even remember my birthday. And so they sat me down there at the meeting and said, "Bud, I want to tell you something. Your natal birthday is meaningless, but you're now in Alcoholics Anonymous. Tell you something else. We've given you a brand new birthday. And if you're getting grass fires over that birthday, we're going to let you go out tomorrow and find another one. And if you don't like that one, you go out the next day and find another one. When you find one you like, come on back in here. We're going to sing happy birthday to you every year." And I understand that kind of love talk, and I needed that kind of love talk. And I've not had any grass fires over my new birthday. My birthday is April 21st, 1971. I like being a spring baby. Right, Kurt? And the first guy to ever call me that, he's about 6'3". I wanted to punch him, but you know, I was sober about 4 months. You think better when you're sober, and so I like being a spring baby. And I've not had any grass fires over that new birthday. My parents left the sovereign state of Texas when I was 3, and they moved to the Panhandle in New Mexico, and the grass fires got a little hotter and a little higher. I really can't tell you too much about Texas, but I can tell you about the Panhandle in New Mexico. In this neighborhood we moved into, in the neighborhood, if you had a two-holer, now everybody had outdoor facilities, but if your outdoor facility was a two-holer, you were considered class. Now we had a two-holer sitting out. They all sat out there about 100 yards, you know, sort of get away from the smell. And the reason we had a two-holer, you know, if you got a large family of kids like that, you better have a two-holer. And so anyway, the reason it's become a part of my story is because one of my younger brothers was out here about 15 years ago and embarrassed me among my friends in Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, "Bud, do you remember the night you burned down the two-holer?" Well, you know, there's not really a lot of class even in Alcoholics Anonymous talking about burning down two-holers. And the reason it left, what happens is that back there in the wintertime it's cold, and if you have to make that run in the middle of the night, see, before I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I found that I'm not unusual, I could not tell you about the real me and about my fears. Because macho men are not afraid of hell, death, nor the grave. And I wasn't afraid of hell, death, nor the grave, but the truth of the matter is I was terrified of the dark. And so when I had to make that run in the middle of the night, I'd con one of these younger brothers into making the run, see? Because I figured that whoever they were, they'd catch him and eat him first, see? And I'd get away. So I conned this younger brother into making the run. And you can only steal a couple of those wooden kitchen matches, because if too many of those come up missing, she gets suspicious, you know. So I stole my 2 wooden kitchen matches, and I got my little brother conned into making the run. So we get out there, and I got him standing guard, and And I'm sitting there taking care of business, and that Sears catalog works for a lot of things. I found out after I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, you can order out of the damn thing. My family didn't know that, you know. But it's good for the cleanup job, and if you handle that sucker right and you tear off a page at a time and you crumple it and you use one of your matches, it kind of takes the chill off of that place. So I'm sitting there taking care of business, and I got my heater going. Got him standing guard, and the heater got away from me. And up she went, and I was the first one out. I beat him out, and he apparently almost went up with it. Left a hell of an impression on him. He's never had a drink in his life, you know. Became a minister of the Holy Gospel. Weird dude. And so anyway, that was sort of that scene. If you got a large family of kids like that, you got a bedwetter, you got a kid with a problem, you got another one that stutters, you got a kid with a problem, you got another one that bites his nails, you got a kid with a problem. And this family had a kid with a problem, only I was all three of them. And the other weird thing about me was that I did well in school. Now, it's kind of been revealed to me since I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. I really don't think I was all that good a student. But God, I was fascinated by those indoor facilities, you know, because when you got to school, they turned those lights on, those suckers came on, beat the heck out of that kerosene lamp at home. And those other facilities, when you got through, just turn around and flush that mother and watch her go. You know? I used to wonder, where does it go? You know, because at home, it's there tomorrow and the next day and next week and next month and ad infinitum, you know. And so, you know, I was so fascinated by those facilities that I used to kind of save up for that. And anyway, in my family, if you make it to the 8th grade, well, that's top shelf. You know, get out here and get a job and start putting something in this pot, boy. And they talk to the girls that way, too, you know. Get out here, you know, if they made it to the 8th grade, you get out here and start putting something in this pot, girl. So anyway, my family had never had a kid graduate from high school, but they'd never had a kid as fascinated with indoor facilities as I was either. So when I graduated from high school, they didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what they were doing. I had a lot of misconceptions. My hometown doctors' sons became doctors, dentists' sons became dentists, and all the damn lawyers' sons became judges. And this thing they were trying to pawn off on me was a drunken carpenter. And he didn't walk or talk like Jesus either. You know, he talked a lot about Jesus, but he didn't. So anyway, to make a long story real short, after that first 12 years of formal education, I was to add an additional 14, giving me a total of 26. And if you're that fascinated with indoor facilities, you'll end up with a couple of degrees, and I did. And my sponsor always reminds me that a rectal thermometer has a lot of degrees, so that's about what that's worth. And so we don't have to go into any of that crap. Anyway, they started the Korean peace action when I turned 21, and they sent me a notice that I was the right age to be drafted in the walk-in army, and scared the hell out of me. So I ran over and talked to the Air Force and showed them one of these pieces of paper, and they said, "Oh yeah, that's great." So anyway, they made me an officer and a gentleman by an act of Congress, and gave me a direct commission as a second lieutenant, and shipped me to Northern California. So I started to drink at the age of 21 in the Air Force. I'd never done any drinking before that. I only smoked for 26 years, but I've been off of it now since 1977. And every year that I've been away from it, it's gotten worse and worse. I'm sorry. I was talking in Santa Barbara a couple of years ago, and I'd forgotten. It was a total smoking meeting. They didn't have a little section or anything, and my voice quit completely. So, well, if it does, to hell with it, you know. No big deal. But anyway, God, I hope I don't go like Chuck C. did with emphysema. In the last few years, he had to, if he could stand up to the podium, he had to be a non-smoking meeting. So anyway, where the hell are we? Am I sober? Hell no, I'm drinking. Oh yeah, so I started to drink in the Air Force at the age of 21. Now, I had never done any drinking before that. I knew all about drinking. I knew all about alcoholism. My dad was a bad alcoholic, you know. I'd drink up the paycheck, beat the wife, beat the kids. I knew about that. And the book talks about guys like me. We're so damn smart we don't know anything. The book says self-knowledge availed us nothing. And so on the basis of self-knowledge, I knew that could never happen to me. I suffered from delusions of immunity. And so I started to drink at the age of 21 in the Air Force, and then my first drink turned into my first drunk New Year's Eve at the Officers Club, Old Lang Syne. This colonel's wife, cutest little thing, little brunette, 32 years old, wished me Happy New Year, gave me this little New Year's Eve kiss, and I read all sorts of things into that. This gal I used to read the traditions for, and a part of her story, she talks about instant love. And the first time I ever heard that, I recognized that. But this colonel wife was 32, and she was married to this old codger. This old guy was 42, and I knew the lady was in trouble, and what she needed was 22-year-old me. By this time, I'm 22, so I made a lot of trips in the bar. Every time I came back from the bar, don't believe wished you Happy New Year again. Anyway, for your first drunk, one of the worst things in the world you can do is try to make out with the colonel's wife. That is really stupid, man. And man, that little brass bar doesn't mean nothing. So anyway, that's how drinking got started for me. And you can, anyway, it didn't work out anyway. I didn't make out with her. She, you know, to her it was just a dumb little kiss to the second lieutenant. Anyway, I recognized that when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous too, back 22 years ago. They said, if you want what we have, you know, in all the meetings they had kissy going. I notice now it's mostly huggy, but back then it was kissy. And if you want what we have, I figured whatever the hell it was, everybody in the room was going to have before the night was over, except me. These guys, no matter what I ever did, it didn't feel like I'd really quite been up on top, like I'd done it all. You know, my record proved otherwise. I was never in less than the top 15% of anything I tried. But I didn't feel it down in my gut where I live. And so, anyway, I left Northern California and came to Southern California and enrolled at UCLA as a pre-medical student. And spent three semesters there and applied for medical school, and was accepted, headed back east to start this new venture. Didn't know it was called taking a geographic. And got back there, and they made me take a physical to see if I was okay. And this part of my story, as are other parts of my story, are for me, lest I forget. Step 2 says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. The alcoholic, it doesn't qualify for step 2, and I qualify real well, and I don't want to ever forget that. What happened is when I took this physical, a guy in front of me went in the room on the right. He got a second-year resident in dermatology, a future skin doctor. And the room opened up on the left. I get a second-year resident in cardiology, a future heart doctor. And this guy was listening to me with that thing, and he bent down over me and said, "Anybody ever tell you I had a murmur?" And I shot up off the table. I said, "Hell no, what are you talking about?" I said, I didn't know what it was, but that didn't sound right. I said, "What do you mean murmur?" He said, "Well, don't get excited." I said, "Who's excited?" And I said, "What do you mean murmur?" And he said, "Well, this is what we call a little soft, innocent, grade 1 systolic murmur, but he said you pull monic second sound and split and widely fixed and doesn't close on expiration." Oh, yeah? My best defense is an offense. If you can't defend, we'll attack. And I think this guy said something bad. And I said, "Man, you got to be kidding me." I said, "I just spent 3 years in the military. Did you serve?" "You 4F mother." Well, he had served, and I said, "I got honorable discharge. How about you, Section 8? Well, his was all right. And I said, "Man," I said, "this is a hell of a deal." I said, "I just left Los Angeles." I said, "I was working 2 jobs, 7 days a week." I said, "I'm journeyman in 2 trades. I just got this rotten place. Now it's a rotten place already." I said, "I just painted a house." I said, "You want to run a foot race?" I never run one, but I figured I'd beat his ass. Anyway, he said, "Well, just settle down." I said, "Man, this is a hell of a deal. Go through what I've gone through. You're not even going to let me start. You don't know what I can do." He said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "That's no problem." He said, "You can start." And so settled down then. I figured I'd won. So anyway, what this guy told me was that they thought that I had a big hole between my 2 upper chambers that shouldn't be there, and that the natural course of that heart disease is that by age 45, you'd be a cardiac cripple. You'd be bedridden the last 5 years of your life, and you'd be dead by the age of 50. I said, "Hell, that's old anyway. Who needs to go beyond that, you know?" I'm now 63. It looks pretty good to me. So anyway, I handled that like any good alkie would. There's nothing wrong with me, never has been, never will be. I deny all disease, heart disease. I don't got it, you know, I don't want it. I don't want alcoholism as a disease, man. You got to stay away from those things. So anyway, I stuck my head in the sand for the next 3 years. And back then, you know, when I would lie down at night, my resting pulse lying down was 96 to 100. That's my resting pulse. And I never ever had to take it. I could just listen to it or watch it, you know. But I never ever had to take it. And if I slept 8 hours, I could always sleep 16. I thought everybody felt that way. And my hangovers were the worst things I've ever known in my life. Now, I'll drink with you man for man, drink for drink, for 18 hours. But at the end of 18 hours, I go down. And you're looking at a dead man. And you're not going to see me for 36 hours. I'm totally wiped out. But I was never, ever able to make the connection. Anything that could make you feel that good last night cannot be connected with this nonsense. So I could not make the connection. So anyway, at the end of 3 years, I went to see this guy, and I came up with the alky solution. I said, the hell with it, I'm going to die anyway. So I went and talked to this guy, and now they didn't have the heart-lung machine back in those days, so they could bypass the heart and let the pump, you know, do the job for you, and then they could work on the heart while the pump's keeping you alive. But they had this thing called hypothermia, where they just froze you, because they were losing them like flies back in those days. So anyway, what this guy told me, that if they could freeze me and get me down to this low temperature and stop the heart, and then, you know, clamp it off and suck out all the blood and get this thing sewed up, and then they could restart it and they were pretty good about restarting them. So anyway, he said, and because even, you know, Dent and Cooley, they were losing them like flies on those early pumps. So anyway, trying to bypass. So anyway, I said, to hell with it, I'm going to die anyway. So I said, freeze me. So they did, and I made it. And so I got right back in with my class, and I had to reward myself at the end of the next quarter for my good grades and my good deeds and for being alive. And so I did it the only way one of us knows how to do it, and I pulled a drunk that you would have been proud of. And I was absolutely amazed. I was up by noon the next day. There had never, ever been anything wrong with booze or drinking. It had been that bad heart the whole time. Now, normal people don't think the way we think, and God, I don't ever want to forget that. So anyway, I came back out to California. I got back out here with my first wife. I first got married as a teenager. I always kind of felt born married, and every time I got a new wife, I got a new religion, and my first wife was Catholic, so I was Catholic 13 years, lacking 2 months. Those Catholic girls will cut you loose after a while. I don't care what the church says, and they hang in there pretty good, but after a while, that's it, you know. So anyway, when I was out there drinking, if you could get me to talk about it, I used to say that I divorced my first 2 wives, you know, because that sounds very macho, divorced the bitch, you know. Yeah. But it's a lie. They both divorced me. And I also used to say when I was out there drinking, if you could get me to talk about it, that I never ever made the same mistake twice. Now by that I meant I never remarried one of my mistakes. And but that's kind of been revealed to me since I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, because after that Catholic girl cut me loose, I married this other girl. Well, I had to wait 12 months. Interlocutory final decree, 12 months. They don't have those antiquated laws anymore, thank God. I don't know who they made them for, but I didn't observe them. So anyway, what I did, I moved in with this second lady, and we started what's called a California marriage. And that's where you put your stuff with her stuff. Now she had a brand new home over in Tustin. She also had a brand new Oldsmobile, and she was making $1,000 a month, and I wasn't a total loss. I was making $350, and also I had this old '54 Pontiac, and also I had an old Army desk that I picked up at a garage sale in Laguna Beach one Saturday morning for $15. So anyway, we put our stuff together and started this California marriage, and I wasn't able to handle that thing because I'm the kind of guy that got to do things right. You know, it's the right way and the wrong way, and I'm going to do them right. And I wasn't able to handle that because there are 16-year-old daughters living with us, and here I am, pillar of the community, setting this bad example. So I loaded her in a new Oldsmobile a couple of weekends later and drove to Las Vegas and became a bigamist is what I did. But I felt okay about that, you know. It solved that little girl's problem. Anyway, She moved out a couple of months later. She moved in with her 21-year-old brother who had moved out the day we started the California marriage. Well, to hell with him, I tried. So anyway, finally the 12 months is up, so now I got a real problem because I'm married to her twice, but I'm not really married to her. So I ran up to Los Angeles, picked up another marriage certificate, came back to Orange County, married her in Orange County. Now it's going to be a real California marriage, and it's going to last forever. And that was the 3 months I was Presbyterian. The Presbyterian girls catch on a lot faster, and I got home about 2:30 this particular morning. Bars closed at 2 in Orange County, and anywhere I was, Seal Beach, Huntington Beach, anywhere, I could be home in Santa Ana by 2:30. Anyway, I got there at 2:30, and my key didn't fit her new door anymore. And there sat my desk and my stuff in the middle of the street. And my 54 Pontiac wasn't running at that time. It had been in a little altercation. And so I called up this buddy of mine. He brought his pickup over, and we loaded my stuff in the way it went. And I'd always go down and counterfile, just in case they dropped the ball. Then you can go right through with your countersuit. You know, I had a knack for marrying non-drinking women. I didn't know they were called Al-Anons, and I never ever had to use a countersuit. So anyway, it was at this point that I figured out my problem. I figured that first wife had been my age, and that hadn't worked out, and the second lady had been the older woman that can love you and take good care of you and do nice things for you, and she was, and she did for 3 months. And so I figured what I ought to do is find a young one and train her. And it was at this point that I spotted Ungrateful Mary, and she looked trainable to me. And she was 22 years old, and I was 33, and that seemed about right. So I got started on this training program, and I asked her to move in with me and start the California marriage. I thought that one had worked pretty good, and she wouldn't do that. Now, it turns out she's a card-carrying member of that other fellowship. She wasn't at that time, but she had all the qualifications. And so she wouldn't move in with me, so I was afraid to go back to Vegas. I was afraid they'd pass information between states and say, hey, you know, that guy's back again. And but I'd heard about Mexico, and I'd never tried Mexico. So I asked Mary to go to Mexico. Well, she wouldn't do that either. So I had to wait. And now this is a young girl, and I'm going to train her right. And every young girl needs a honeymoon, so I'm going to get this one off the ground right. And so anyway, final decree came on April the 1st. Picked up the final decree, got the marriage certificate. We got married on April 2nd. Her mom and dad moved out, flew out to California for the wedding, and also to babysit our son, who was born on March 20th. So as soon as the wedding was over, well, her mom and dad picked up the kid. He's 12 days old, and loaded Ungrateful in the car and headed to San Clemente. Another brilliant move down in Nixon country. And got down there and checked in the hotel. I bought her dinner, and checked in the hotel, and I flipped on TV and watched a little TV, and she went in the bathroom, changed pads a couple times, used the breast pump a couple times, and came back out and flipped off the TV and went to sleep. And I woke her up about 6 the next morning, loaded her in the car, stopped in San Juan Capistrano on the way back, got her a cup of coffee and donut, and got back into Santa Ana and picked up the kid. He's 13 days old now, and and took her over to the house, and she moved in with me then. It was okay. She had that magic piece of paper, so I dumped her and her magic piece of paper and her 13-day-old kid off, and I went to the office and went to work. But she had had her honeymoon, wasn't going to hang that one on me down the road. So anyway, I went home for lunch every day as part of the training program, and we've been married a little less than a year, and I get home for lunch one day, and she's not there. And here sits this damn note in a sandwich. And that didn't make any sense. I'd a trainor, she'd a trainee. What's it? So anyway, got home that night. I said, you weren't home for lunch today? And she said, no, I went to a meeting. And I said, what kind of a meeting? I figured some damn bridge thing or some sorority thing. I said, what kind of a meeting? And she said, Al-Anon. I said, what in the hell is Al-Anon? She said, that's a group of people that get together that have trouble with booze. I said, what kind of trouble you got with booze? Thought maybe I'd married a closet drinker or something. So, what kind of trouble you got with booze? And she said, well, I don't understand it. I said, there's not that much to understand. I said, you don't drink. One, I saw you have two one night. So she's trying to get dinner. None of this is making any sense to me. Now, those folks have free pamphlets, and they also have books, and she brought some of that crap home. Now, she brought out this book, and the name of the book, right out on the cover of the book, Living with an Alcoholic. That's the name of the book. And I took one look at that, and I said, I said, you know, as far as I know, when I come and go here every day, I'm the only guy coming and going. I thought that was good. And I said, the only thing I've seen that kid belt lately is milk. So by the simple process of elimination, I'm the alcoholic you're living with. Now at that point she threw up her hand and shook her head and said, I am not calling you an alcoholic. Now that's apparently the first rule they teach them over there. Don't ever tell him what he is. And when she organization, who took you to this? And she said, your lawyer. Now the man had been my lawyer for about 5 years, but he was about to lose a client, or his life, or both. And I had some thinking to do. I think best when I drink. It's a bad combination, but I always had to do it that way. And I got out my bottle and I started on that lady's problem. And I got him, I got on the phone. I finally got him about midnight. Now he's alcoholic and he's been known to lie. Besides that, he's a lawyer and all of them lie. And he said it was about 2 in the morning when I finally got him on the phone. He asked me a bunch of fool questions, you know, one right after the other, how they are. Never shut up. And it wasn't until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous that, you know, the guy wasn't so damn smart. He sat there and read the 20 questions to me, and I can do that, you know. And I had all the right answers. I had 20 no's, and so I hung up the phone and I said, well, I talked to my lawyer. I'm not alcoholic. I said, where'd you go to this meeting? She said, in Laguna Beach. I said, it's still in Orange County. Go down there with a bunch of damn sob sisters and tell about this alcoholic you're living with, ruin my reputation, or this community. And I said, you continue to go to this flaky outfit. And I said, and I'll divorce you now. And I said, and what's more, you're only number 3, and I'm just getting wound up good. I was never ever a nice drunk, and I'm not proud of that. But I told that sweet lady that, and if we make it till April this year, we'll have 28 years, and I'm happy to report that 22 of that will be sober years. And so anyway, old Grateful Mary had the longest slip in Al-Anon history because she did not go back. She took my threat. She did not go back to her meeting. She didn't destroy her killer book either. By the way, if you got one of those, they had to change the name of that book. You can't even buy that book anymore. It's now called Al-Anon Family Groups. You know, with that other name on it, it apparently killed too many people. So if you got one that says living with an alcoholic, you got yourself a collector's item. Hang on to that. You know, that ought to be worth some money. That ought to fetch as much money as some of those original big books. Anyway, she still got her collector's item. And so I had 5 more years of drinking to do. And I don't know whether Chapter 3 was read here tonight, but Chapter 3 is called More About Alcoholism. I call Chapter 3 Attempt to Control Drinking. And if you like to drink the way I like to drink, that's the worst kind of drinking on the face of the earth. And forever overshooting the mark one more time and not being able to get a handle on this thing. So anyway, I got here 5 years later, and that damn lawyer was still sober, and he took me to my first meeting. And as I said, I've been lucky. I've not had a drink since then, and I was not impressed with you people. You know, I got here and talked about higher power. I knew you were talking about God, you know, and I hated that. And so when I got here, I said, Alcoholics Anonymous will not be another damn religion for me. And so I refused to go to Sunday meetings. Made sense to me. And I had 6 home groups, and on Sunday I watched TV. And that lasted for 6 months. In the end of 6 months, I ended up with 8 home groups, and 2 of them were Sunday meetings. So I continued to tolerate your people with your higher power. And, you know, if you're a super intellect like most of us alkies are, and you've been exposed to as many religions as I have, I had to come to Alcoholics Anonymous to find that organized religion and God are not synonymous, and I didn't know that. And you know, each and every one that I was ever associated with, theirs was the only God, theirs was the right God, and everybody else was going to hell or worse places. You know, the Catholics had all sorts of options, you know, limbo and mimbo and mumbo and jumbo and purgatory and hell. And as a matter of fact, I was a Baptist in my career, and the Baptists had some places for the Catholics to go that they didn't even know about, you know. So anyway, I was really in a bad way there, and at the end of 2 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, I got a call from my oldest daughter by that first wife, and she had just completed her first year of college, and she said, Dad, I'd like to come to California and work in your office this summer, and I was delighted about that. I owe that to you, and I owe that to Alcoholics Anonymous, because I didn't have a relationship with those first 4 older kids. And She came out and she had been working in my office for about 6 weeks, and my first wife at that time in the process had taken me back into the courtroom for the wreckage of my past. My oldest daughter, having reached the age of majority, did not want to be a part of that sick courtroom scene, and she wanted a direct relationship with her dad, and I was delighted about that. So we're talking at the breakfast table this morning before heading to the office. And all of a sudden, my daughter, I thought things were going well. You know, we were just talking, and she went into this rage, and she jumped up from the table and called me a couple of names, and went storming out the back door, and she got to the back door, and I heard it slam, and then I heard this blood-curdling scream, and I thought she was just really letting it all hang out now. And then she came walking back in, holding out her left hand, and I could see what had happened. She had, in her anger, she had not gotten her left hand out of the way in time, and she had chopped off 2 fingers. And so I got her sitting down, and then I got her lying down, and then I got her fingers wrapped in some sterile dressing, and I went to that back door, and I picked up those fingers, and I put them in some sterile dressing, and I put some ice in a styrofoam cup, and I put them in, and I put in their sterile dressing. I put ice on top of that, and I put it in my pocket. The kind of work that I do, there are probably 150 guys in Orange County that do the kind of work that I do. They have a thing in this country called the Hand Society. At last count, last time I heard, something like 383 members in the entire nation. It may be up over that now, but it's a very exclusive society, and you don't just go down and join the Hand Society. You have to be asked to join, and so anyway, a couple of those guys are buddies of mine. I called this one guy up and told him what had happened. He said, fine. He said, I'll meet you at the emergency room. And so we got over there, and he took a look, and he said, well, he said, it's a common accident. It happens every day. Car doors, house doors, filing cabinets, safes, sliding windows. You know, he said, she's just going to end up with 3 fingers all the same size. I said, now, wait a minute. I said, she's a young girl. She's a very pretty girl. And I said, she just completed her first year of college. And I said, she's got a long life ahead of her. And he said, look, buddy, he said, if she were 1 or 2 years old, he said, I wouldn't hesitate to sew them back on, because sometimes in kids, they'll take. He said, she's an adult. They don't take. And I said, well, look, I said, you know, they're clean, and I've got them on ice. And he said, all right. He said, I can tell you're not buying this. He said, let's take a look at them. So he looked at it. He said, yeah, they're cold and they're clean. He said, all right. He said, since you're not buying it, he said, I'll tell you what I'll do. He said, I'll go ahead and sew them back on. But he said, you got to understand this up front, that it's only going to serve as good biological dressing to keep it from getting infected. And it'll go ahead and turn black and gangrenous, and then we'll just have to do a secondary repair down the road. And I said, well, at least you tried. And he said, okay. So he sewed them back on. He put her in the hospital, and I spent the worst day of my entire life, drunk or sober, before or since, because it all came down on me. What a lousy, rotten failure I've been as a father, as a husband, you name it. And Ungrateful Mary and that lawyer, they babysat me, and they talked to me, and I couldn't eat. And they listened to me whine and cry and not work. And they said, you know, you're not the one that was angry. You're not the one that was upset. You're not the one that slammed the door on her fingers. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. I said, yeah. You know, my head knows all of that. But down here in my gut, where I live, it says guilty. So anyway, he stayed till about 1 o'clock in the morning, and he left. And Mary and I went back to go to bed, and it all came back. There it was again. And I never ever once thought about taking a drink, but I did consider suicide. And so I didn't know what to do. So I did something I've never ever done before in my life. I got down on my knees beside that bed, and I said, God, I don't have to tell you what I want for my daughter's fingers. I said, you know that. But I want you to know this, that whatever you got in mind for her and whatever you've got in mind for her fingers, I'm buying it. I'll buy the package. And I was able to crawl in that bed and go to sleep. Now that's called step 3. I'm sober 2 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm just now getting around to take step 3. And I was able to go to sleep, and I could not believe that. And so the next day I went to see her in the hospital, and the next night I was on my knees again. And I'm the kind of alky that if I do anything twice, I'm addicted. And I've been on my knees every night since then. And I was on my knees last night. I'll be on my knees again tonight. And to make a long story short, she left that hospital, and those fingers did not look black or gangrenous, but they looked a little bit pink. And she came home, and they got to looking pinker and pinker. And she'd have to go to that doctor's office every other day for a dressing change. And she'd come home, and she said, Dad, you know, when I get there, he takes the dressing off, and he runs and gets his camera and just starts snapping pictures and kind of shakes his head. And I said, sweetheart, I said, you tell him that doctors only sew things back together, that God heals them. And this is one alky that didn't know that before I got here and met you people. And to make a long story real short, about 3 years after that, she called me up and asked me if I would fly back east and march her down the aisle and give her away to this jackass she married. This pot-smoking, beer-drinking jackass. And so Mary and I and our 2 boys and our little girl, who was 4 years old, we got on a plane and we flew to a wedding, and I marched her down the aisle and I gave her away to that jackass, and I watched him put rings on fingers like fingers are supposed to look, with nails like nails are supposed to look. I didn't pinch anybody, I didn't punch anybody, I didn't insult anybody, and I can tell you all about that. And our little boys were part of the ushering group, and my little baby girl was 4 years old, and she was a flower girl for her older sister and the apple of her daddy's eye. And that jackass has since made me the proud grandfather of 2 beautiful little granddaughters and 1 little grandson. And my favorite page in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous is page 45. Page 45 says these words: lack of power was our dilemma. And the main reason that this book was written is to help you find that power, which will solve your problem. And then it goes on to say, and of course we're going to be talking about God, capital G-O-D. And they don't say a higher power, or they don't say group as you understand it, or doorknob as you understand it. They just spit it right out there about capital G-O-D. And so my message in Alcoholics Anonymous is this: God is alive and well, and he will get your attention in only a way that you will recognize. And when he does it, you will recognize it, and you will know that he is who he is. And he's done it twice in my life. First with that oldest daughter, who I guess is going to be 39 this month, and most recently with that baby daughter who was 4, who's now, she just turned 21 this month. I have 3 daughters. All 3 of them were born in January. I don't know what the hell that means. I got 4 sons. None of them were born in January. Anyway, in January I'll have girls, regardless of which wife it's with. Anyway, the girl that just turned 21, who was a flower girl for her sister, when she turned 16, she's never seen her father drunk. She's never seen me in glorious full bloom alcoholic action whilst drinking. So anyway, when she turned 16, she decided that life wasn't worth living. We had her in some counseling, and so she took overdose of a bunch of crap and tried to kill herself. And so Mary and I get this call from this hospital, this emergency room where I don't work, and so we get down there, and here these 2 counselors had been singing, and they're out in the hallway, and they don't know from straight up. And Mary and I are terrified because we think our daughter's in there dying. And so we're standing there, and all of a sudden this doctor who's taking care of my daughter, he walks out in the hallway and he spots me. He walks right up to me, big guy, 6'4". And he said, "Oh, Bud," he said, "good to see you." He said, "I just saw your daughter. Said she took this and she took this, and I've given her this, and I've drawn this, and I've done that." Now, I don't work in that hospital, and I don't know this guy from Adam, and he's called me by my first name. And so he can tell I'm kind of confused by this, so he kind of looked down the hallway both ways, and he bent over and he said, "Laguna Beach, Wednesday night." So one more time, I knew that my alcoholic brother doctor was in God's hands, therefore my daughter would be okay, and she was, and she is. And as I said, I don't know what God has to do in your life to let you know that he's alive and well, but I'm here to tell you that if you're sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous tonight, drunk or sober, the good Lord has already looked down on you and he smiled on you, and he loves you very much, and so do I. Thanks for having me.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. to install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.